Hey, what is going on, you guys? Welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having an awesome Sunday. Finally, after so much waiting, I've been teasing people on my Instagram page for so long. I'll finally be able to make a video, take the C5 for a drive. And I got a vote on my Instagram page on what kind of video I should make for my first video. How I got a Corvette at 23, or what's been done to the car so far, what's been broken, what's been fixed, and what the plans are. And so far, that idea is winning at the time I'm talking to you guys. So that's what I'm gonna do. Here it is, and I got just the way to start off this video. Okay, so that was a not so cold start because I've already driven the car. Alright, so here we go. So, I had a vote on my Instagram page what I should do, what kind of video should be the first video, and the one that's winning at the time I'm recording this is a sort of overview of the car, an overview of the car, what's been broken, what's been fixed, and what my plans are for the car. So, when I first got the car is a 98 C5. It's a 6-speed manual with a short shifter in it already, but somebody did a piss poor job at installing it because it's really notchy, even with the anti-venom mod. And for those of you who do not know what that is, it's pretty much you take a bolt out from the transmission, which sort of puts pressure on the spring or something of the sort. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. And you put 2 washers on it, and then you put the screw back. And pretty much it puts less pressure on the spring, and then it makes the shifter a lot smoother. So even with that, this short shifter is still really notchy. But anyway, first issue that came up with this car as soon as I bought it, I drove it about 110 miles to Pennsylvania to visit my sister and my brother-in-law, and we noticed that there was a transmission leak. Now, for those of you who do not know, the transmission in this car is in the back, and it's actually joined together with the whole rear end and diff. So, in that joint, for reasons unknown, GM decided instead of putting a gasket there, they're gonna put silicone. So the car was sitting for a long time. I had the dealership before I bought it, including throughout the winter, and at an auction before that. The dealer got it from an auction. And so when I started driving the car, the silicone, you know, sitting for so long, the silicone just dries up, it develops cracks. And then when I started driving the car, the pressure from all the fluid just finally came out through those cracks. So that was the first thing that had to be fixed, which has been done. And one thing we noticed when we did the transmission leak, first of all, to take out the transmission in this car, you have to disconnect the drive shaft from the clutch, and you have to take the entire transmission out with the entire rear end connected to it, because the whole drive shaft goes through it, and it's all pretty much connected together. So when we took it apart, we did notice one thing. The clutch in this car is brand new, and it's definitely not stuck. And from the way it feels just on my foot, it's probably a stage 1 or stage 2 clutch. So I got the clutch out of the way already. Hopefully I won't have to worry about it for some time. So I left the car there in Pennsylvania with that transmission leak because it was leaking to the point where if the car all it had to do was stay in one spot for 1 hour, and there was already like a small stain on the ground of transmission fluid. So I left the car there and I decided to get it fixed there. My brother-in-law said he has a good mechanic, because I did not know honestly how much transmission fluid was left in the car. So I left it there, we got that fixed. And when I went to pick the car up, I returned to New York after a weekend still without the car. Now, what had happened, pretty much, we went to a restaurant, my brother-in-law, my sister and I. My brother-in-law had his car and I had my car. But as we were coming out the restaurant, my brother-in-law was in front of me. He gets on the road and he guns it. So I get behind him and I gun it too. And I stretched out first gear all the way to red line, and as I shifted from 1 to 2, I just heard like a grinding metal on metal sound. Like I was scared that something had happened to the engine at that point, pretty much right after picking the car up. But what it turned out, I pulled over, and what it was that the harmonic balancer pulley pretty much broke. Now it is made of 2 pieces, that pulley. It's pretty much an outer ring, an inner ring, and in between them is like a piece of rubber holding it together. Now with the car sitting at dealerships and through winters outside as long as it did, that piece of rubber got, you know, old and worn out. So when I shifted from 1 to 2 at red line, that jerk that you get when you shift, it pretty much separated the outer ring from that piece of rubber. And so what happened was the outer ring slid off the entire pulley and it was rubbing on my steering rack. Luckily the car didn't throw the belts and I managed to drive it 2 more minutes home, of course to my sisters and my brother-in-laws, and the car stayed there for another month or so. Now I am planning on racing this car. It's gonna be at a drag strip a couple times per year. It's also gonna be on circuits a couple times per year. So I knew that I could replace a bunch of different stuff now along with the pulley, because you have to take out a lot of stuff out from the front end to get to the pulley. And first thing was, I read up on the pulleys, and I read that the OEM pulleys, the stock pulleys, are notorious for actually breaking like that. Usually people who have that problem have already tuned their C5s, they got heads, cams, or superchargers or something, but this was stock, almost stock. The car just has an intake on it, that's it. But I decided to get a PowerBond race balancer. Now originally I ordered a 10% underdrive pulley, and I was waiting on it for a long time, and I still got no shipping details after ordering. So I messaged the seller, and the seller said that they are on back order right now and that they can't ship it because they don't have any more. So what I did was I changed my order and I got a normal size PowerBond race pulley. So it's still like normal size, nothing is underdriven. That's one thing I did. Another thing is that I did was I changed the power steering pump. One of the main things that can overheat when you're on a circuit racetrack is the power steering fluid. So one thing I noticed when I was working on the pulley is that the grooves that you have in the pulley on which the belt goes in the power steering pulley was sort of chipped off or broken. So I just decided to get a turn 1 power steering pump, which everyone says is amazing for the C5s on racetracks. It is a little bit heavier at lower speeds, like right now, than stock, but once you get up to speed, it should really make up for it. So the power steering pump is another thing. And then I decided to replace the steering rack with some motivation, I guess you could call it, or a slight push from my brother-in-law. He said, get a new rack, you'll have new seals, new everything, so it'll be safer, because there's a lot of pressure there in the rack from the fluid, especially when you're on a racetrack and you're taking turns really fast. Camaro!
To merge onto I-678.
And so I did replace the steering rack, but the main issue was that they did not have, GM does not make new steering racks for the C5s anymore. You can only get a remanufactured one. So I still got a remanufactured one, I put that in the car,
Take the exit.
and it
Then
was
keep
broken
left
right
to merge
away.
onto Long Island toward I-678.
I drove the car. I replaced a bunch of other stuff. I got some new hoses and some new seals for the pulleys and other stuff. But I drove the car home after it waited for parts for about a month. And the next day, pretty much, I just started the car up. My power steering pump is whining, and I opened the hood. I checked the reservoir. It's empty. I check under the car. There's a big power steering fluid stain under the car. So I said, okay, something's not right. I tried to find the leak. It turned out to be a steering rack. It was leaking from the boot, from one of the seals. So how I bought that rack too was I paid $400 for it, and then you give a $350 deposit. You send them your old rack back, and they give you the deposit back. So I messaged the seller, and luckily they said they still got my old rack and they haven't done anything to it. So I asked them to send that old rack back to me, and then I will send this remanufactured broken rack back to them for a refund. So they send me my old rack back. Then I send it to the same company I got my Turn 1 pump at, and I sent my old rack to them for a rebuild. So I got the old rack rebuilt. It took about three weeks actually, or even a month, because it was during the Christmas break and everything. And so now I got my old rack back in the car, just rebuilt. And now the car is finally fixed. Let's just turn on the lights here. It's getting a little dark. There we go. Okay, so now that the car has finally been fixed, I can finally enjoy it. I can finally make videos.
In 1.4 miles, take
What are my plans for this car?
Turnpike West.
So the first thing I want to do is check this shifter out. It's a short throw shifter that's been installed by the previous owner, or he had it installed by someone. I do not know that. I do not know what make this shifter is, but I can tell you it is not good. Going into gear, it's very close to grinding. It's so notchy to get it into gear, especially when I'm standing still, and that first moment that I go clutch in and either first or reverse. It's very hard. I have to force it into gear. So my best guess is that the shifter is just not aligned properly, and that it needs an adjustment. But I like the short throws of the shifter, but I just do not like how messed up it is. It's easy actually to miss a gear, even though it's a short shifter and it's precise, because sometimes it just does not want to go into gear. And then after the shifter, I want to change the intake in this car. It's got a black wing right now, but I want to take that out, and I want to get a Veraram intake in it. When I get the intake, first thing, this car needs an exhaust. It is super quiet. It is too quiet. Now I want to put in American Racing long tube headers with an off-road X-pipe and a Corsa Extreme catback. That's what I want to put into this car. Then it's definitely going to be probably the loudest car in my neighborhood, which I'm really looking forward to. After the exhaust, we got to look to eliminating the wheel hop in this car. The C5s are notorious for their wheel hop, and mine is no exception. Whenever I get on it when it's cold and the tires start losing grip,
Take the exit, then keep left onto
the back wheels hop really badly. Now, wheel hop can actually damage your differential. You could actually blow your diff, because it's not meant, since your wheels are connected to the diff, your diff jumps along with them, and it's not meant to jump up and down rapidly really fast, so you could actually break something.
Use the left 2 lanes to keep left
So
onto
what I'm
Union
gonna do
Turnpike.
is I'm gonna take out the old shocks in this car and put in C6 Z06 shocks. That will stiffen up the whole car, because the stock C5 shocks are too soft anyway. and better shocks will help eliminate wheel hop, because better shocks will do a better job at pressing the wheel to the ground, or
Keep left.
Or if the wheels do come up and they bounce up,
In half a mile, turn left onto Park
stiffer
Lane.
shock will rebound it faster, therefore the hop will be smaller. Hang on guys, tunnel. Even with an intake though, I mean the exhaust is stock, but all you hear is the engine. You don't hear the exhaust at all, you hear the engine. But the engine with that intake, I gotta say, it sounds really, really nice. So, C6 Z06 shocks, that's a must in this car. Second thing will be a transmission mount. I will get an AFE transmission mount, because if I haven't said it before, I'll say now. The transmission is in the back. That's another component where if you stiffen it up,
then turn right onto Park
it will
Lane
lower
South.
or absolutely completely combined with the C6 Z06 shocks, it will eliminate the wheel hop completely, and I will not have to worry about blowing my diff anymore. After that, I'm gonna start looking for more modifications. Better brakes. This car is gonna need better brakes for the racetrack, and this guy just ran a red light. And after that, we're gonna be looking to modifying the engine even more. Now, I do not want to make this massive 1,000 horsepower monster and just use it on the drag strip. I want it to be a good balance between power and handling, because I'll be using the car on the circuits a lot. So if I have 1,000 horsepower, anytime I go near the gas, I'm just gonna end up going backwards, which is not what I want. So the car will be getting heads and cam build, no superchargers, none of that. And the place that I'm going to be getting it done at is called Diablo Formula Racing in Pennsylvania. Now, go check them out if you don't know them. They got their own channel on YouTube. They do a lot of Corvettes, a lot of Camaros, just like pretty much a lot of LS engines. The guy there is really cool. I talked to him already a couple times.
In 700 feet, turn right onto Park Lane South.
And so I'm gonna go there to get the exhaust, and when I get the exhaust in, I'm gonna get a dyno tune on the car also, and that should give this car a nice little kick in the ass when it gets a proper dyno tune with the exhaust.
Park Lane South.
And then after the exhaust, we can start worrying about modifying the engine, doing the heads, doing the cam. And Andy at Diablo Formula Racing told me that with a proper setup, he could get me upwards of 500 wheel horsepower on normal fuel, not E85. I was thinking of converting this car to E85, but here in New York, there's barely any gas stations that actually have E85. I would have to drive like 20 minutes, half an hour away from my house to the nearest gas station that has E85. So I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm just gonna keep it at normal pump gas. And Andy said I'm gonna be looking at 500 to 550 wheel horsepower on pump gas with heads cam, with no boost, which actually surprisingly, you know, a lot for an LS1. I've seen plenty of videos with LS1s with heads cam and intake being at 450, 470 wheel, but none of them really at over 500 or let alone 550. So if Andy says he could do it, I mean, that would be amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this video here. I actually came to pick somebody up and I'm here, and on the way back there's a lot of traffic, so I'm probably not gonna be able to get any footage in. So this was my first video on what's been done to the car, the plans for it, and the next video I'm gonna talk about how I got a Corvette at 23 years old. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. See you.